What's up, everybody? It's JT Sports Max, you guys, with another video. I'm here with the Carolina Panthers 2019 wide receiver preview. Going to be going through all of the wide receivers currently on the Carolina Panthers roster as we near training camp. So before I begin, if you guys have a team that you guys want me to preview, make sure to comment that team down in the comment section down below. And also make sure to comment the position as well with the team that you guys want me to preview. So the Carolina Panthers, they have a pretty good group of wide receivers. I'm very excited to see how they do this season. And it's a lot of guys who I really like, who I think are going to have really good seasons in 2019. So before I get into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. A little NFL videos, NFL content daily. And also I live stream weekly every Sunday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And basically, it's a live stream. You guys can call in, and we just talk about football for 4 hours. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're a fan of the NFL and like watching NFL content. So the first guy that we have is Aldrick Robinson. Now, 2018, he had 231 receiving yards, 17 receptions, and 5 touchdowns. And personally, I believe that this was a big L for the Minnesota Vikings, letting him walk away and sign with the Carolina Panthers. I think that the Carolina Panthers got a steal because I think Aldrick Robinson at this point is basically better than Laquan Treadwell, who is basically a bust. And the Minnesota Vikings really should have tried to kept him and free agency, but he signed with the Carolina Panthers. I think he's going to be a pretty good, solid wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. And I think this was a very underrated signing for the Carolina Panthers. And their wide receiving core is definitely better with him on the roster. So I expect him to have a pretty productive season. I'm not expecting nothing crazy, but my expectations for him will probably be 500 receiving yards, about 30 receptions, and I'm not expecting him to have 5 touchdowns, but I think he'll probably have about 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think that's pretty solid. Next up, we have Andre Levon. Now, Andre Levon was an undrafted free agent by the Baltimore Ravens in 2018 out of Virginia. He was on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad from October to December of 2018. In December, he joined the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad. Then later on that month, signed the futures/reserve deal with the Carolina Panthers so he can compete for a roster spot. Now, he has very good hands and he's very good at catching contested passes and jump balls. But my biggest knock on him is how slow he is. He's not really the fastest guy, doesn't really have a lot of explosiveness and quickness off the line. And I think he's a guy who should actually be able to make the roster because other than him not really being the fastest guy, he's pretty solid. The route running is slow, but that can improve. His footwork can improve as well. But he has pretty good hands as well. So I think this guy should at least be making somebody's practice squad. But I think he has a good chance to make the Carolina Panthers 53-man roster, rather if it's on special teams or just being a reserve. I think he has some talent, and I think he should, without a doubt, be on somebody's roster. He reminds me a lot of Eric Decker. Eric Decker was never really the fastest guy, but he was pretty reliable, had pretty reliable hands. And I think Andre Levon reminds me a lot of Eric Decker. So I think this guy deserves a spot on the Carolina Panthers 53-man roster. Of course, everybody deserves a spot to or a chance to be on the team's 53-man roster, but I'm going to be keeping tabs on him throughout the preseason, watching a lot of him and the preseason when preseason kicks off because I think this is a guy who has a lot of upside and a lot of potential, and I think he should be on somebody's roster. Next up, we have Chris Hogan. Now, Chris Hogan in 2018 for the New England Patriots had 132 receiving yards, 35 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. Now, with Chris Hogan, you're getting the guy who has pretty reliable hands and pretty consistent. He was a pretty consistent, reliable target for Tom Brady. And I think with the Carolina Panthers, it's going to be interesting to figure out how many targets he's going to get with the whole Carolina Panthers offense because he's a solid wide receiver, but he's not talented than most of the guys that the Carolina Panthers have on their roster. So I don't think he'll end up being a starter. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how the Carolina Panthers rotates him in the offense and gets him involved in the offense. But overall, he's a pretty solid wide receiver. Nothing elite, but he pretty much has reached his ceiling. I don't think he'll be no better than what he is at this point of his career now. A guy who can get you about 500, 600 receiving yards, and a guy who just is able to fill in if a guy gets injured or something like that. So I think Chris Hogan is going to be pretty interesting to find out how the Carolina Panthers gets him involved in the offense. Next up, we have Curtis Samuel. Now, I like Curtis Samuel a lot. Curtis Samuel has that running back body, but has been converted into a wide receiver, and he has been a pretty solid one when he's able to stay healthy. He had 494 receiving yards, 39 receptions, and 5 touchdowns. When he comes back from his injury and the regular season, I think this guy is going to put a lot of people on notice. I think this is the year that he has a breakout season because I think we have just seen a little bit of glimpses from Curtis Samuel. He has improved every single season that he's been in the NFL, but in 2019, I think he's going to take that big step. Now, last year, his production got hindered because he got injured, but hopefully, when he comes back and Cam Newton is able to stay fully healthy, I think he's going to be pretty good for the Carolina Panthers. And I think this is the year that he has a breakout season. Now, when I say break, I don't mean he's going to go off for like over 1,000 yards or something like that. But I think a pretty good season, at least my expectations for Curtis Samuel will be 800, 900 receiving yards, outside looking in on 1,000 yards, 50 receptions, maybe even 60, and 6 touchdowns as well. Those are my expectations for Curtis Samuel. I think he has been developing pretty well. So he has gotten better every single season that he's been in the NFL. And in 2019, I think this is the year that he's able to take a major step. Next up, we have Damon JeanPierre Jr. Now, I like this guy a lot. He was an undrafted free agent out of Nicholls State. He's a very good route runner and is basically Houdini when he has the ball in his hands, makes a lot of things happen with the ball in his hands, has very good speed as well. He's like 5'11, not the biggest guy, but he runs very solid routes as well. So he's a wild card. I think he should at least make the practice squad for the Carolina Panthers. And if not the practice squad, I think he should most definitely be on the 53-man roster because he's a guy that I think can actually contribute to this Carolina Panthers team if one of the wide receivers ends up going down for injury because this guy is very solid. He was very explosive in college, didn't really get a lot of draft hype because he came from a small school, but I think this guy has a lot of potential and I think he has a good chance of making the roster. I would give him about a 60% shot of making the Carolina Panthers 53-man roster because what this guy is able to do with the ball in his hands is incredible. If you go and watch this guy highlights on YouTube, he is basically Houdini on the football field. Next up, we have DeAndre White. Now, he was on the Carolina practice squad all last season after getting waived by the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans early on in the offseason. Now, this guy, I think pretty much the only way he'll make the roster will be on special teams. I haven't really saw a lot about him when I was researching information for this video. And anytime you don't have a lot of information on you, that means you haven't really did anything to set yourself apart from the rest of the guys. Not really any articles about him or anything. So I'm just going to assume that this guy is competing for a roster spot, and if he makes the roster, he will be on special teams. Next up, we have DJ Moore. Now, DJ Moore was one of the best rookie wide receivers last season. I think he was the second best wide receiver behind Calvin Ridley for the Atlanta Falcons. 2018 had 788 receiving yards, 55 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And I had him on my fantasy team. And he was very productive until Cam Newton ended up getting injured. Once Cam Newton got injured, pretty much his production went down. And that was near the end of the season. He really came on a little bit later on in the season. And most rookie wide receivers don't really come on until after week 8 of the NFL regular season because they have to kind of adjust to the NFL game. I don't know. It's just weird. I guess it's just a wide receiver thing. It just takes them a while to get adjusted and get acclimated to the NFL game before they start going off. But when this guy and Cam Newton were able to get it going, this guy was a force to be reckoned with. And in 2019, I expected him to have over 1,000 yards and probably 70 receptions. And he most definitely is the Carolina Panthers' #1 wide receiver. Last year, year, I remember Steve Smith. He called it. He said when the Carolina Panthers were on the clock to draft, in the 2018 NFL Draft, Steve Smith put the Carolina Panthers on blast. He said the Carolina Panthers need to go ahead and select DJ Moore out of Maryland. They haven't had a number one or true number one wide receiver since me, and they went ahead and drafted DJ Moore, and he was a pretty good wide receiver in his rookie year for the Carolina Panthers, and I think he's going to be in for a very big 2019 NFL season. Next up, we have Jarius White. He had 447 receiving yards, 43 receptions, and 1 touchdown last season. I don't really know a lot about him in terms of where he'll be on this roster. I guess he'll be filling in if somebody gets hurt, a guy like a DJ Moore gets injured or something like that. But overall, he's pretty much a solid backup. He's a good role player who can come in and contribute at times as well. And I think last season was pretty solid for his standards. So next up, we have my favorite guy on this roster, Rashad Ross. Now, Rashad Ross played in and now did Alliance of American Football League. He was one of the best wide receivers in the AAF, and this guy is an incredible deep threat, has great speed, also very can make things happen with the ball in his hands. And I'm rooting for this guy because this guy's father recently passed away to some kind of, I think it was cancer. So I'm rooting for this guy to make the roster. He has been on a lot of NFL teams, hasn't made the roster. So I really hope that this season he can make the Carolina Panthers roster. And I think he can because he can bring a lot to this Carolina Panthers offense. I think he has potential to rotate in for that slot receiver position. And I think he's a guy who can make some big plays as well. So I'm rooting for Rashad Ross. Definitely my favorite player on the Carolina Panthers roster. And I was ecstatic when he got signed by the Carolina Panthers. He also had options to sign with a couple of other teams as well. Next up, we have Terry Godwin. Terry Godwin was drafted in the 7th round of this year's draft. He has solid hands. He's a good route runner, but he needs to get stronger. Also needs to work on some more part of his game. So he should at least make the practice squad. But if he doesn't make the practice squad, I would be extremely shocked. So he's a guy that I need to see a lot more of when we get into the preseason. But this is it. Oh, also we got Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith, underrated. 190 receiving yards, 17 receptions, and had 2 touchdowns. He's going to be another key role player for the Carolina Panthers this season. Don't really know how they're going to get him involved this season, but I think he should be able to make a couple of plays. Not what he used to be, but still able to contribute sometimes. So this is it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe. And also make sure to comment some teams that you guys want me to do down in the comment section down below. And don't forget, if you're watching this video before Sunday, make sure to join the live stream tomorrow, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And thanks for watching.